All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of the Village Board to order at 7:32. All trustees are present with the exception of Trustee Kudo, who is excused this evening. And is this meeting been publicly noticed?
The meeting has been properly noticed and posted according to law.
All right, thank you everyone for being here, and I thank you for your time, talent, and patience in advance as we conduct business this evening. We have a special order of business, a ceremonial swearing in of village trustees. And that will be facilitated by Clerk Harrell.
Go together. Go together.
Raise your right hand. Get active. Having been elected to the office of chief, the village of Sherwood, where that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin. Faithfully, impartially, discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Our best photographer here. There we go. I like that. Should we come in the middle and we can vote? Double picture? You and I? No. Okay, we'll do it.
You want
Man.
Something happens every year.
Good, thank you.
No pictures, Kathy?
All right, that brings us to special orders of business, of which we have two this evening. Our first is from Samaya Clark, who is the Director of the Office of Equity for the Milwaukee County. And I'm very pleased to welcome her this evening. So just as a note to the board, this is a presentation that Director Clark gave to the Intergovernmental Cooperation Council as part of our committee work. And I really thought that it would be of interest to our board and potentially to our residents as well, because of the resources they have available. So thanks. Yeah, so this, speak into the microphone, and you have to speak kind of loud because it's a little bit of a soft microphone.
Am I close enough here for everyone to be able to hear? Or should I move it a
So-
little closer?
a little closer.
This worked out.
Okay, thank you.
Over here.
Okay.
This here and this one.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Thank you very much.
And then.
Okay, is this better? Oh, I can tell the difference if we move just a little.
Yeah, thank you so much.
There, that's
Yes.
could be better? Okay,
Yes,
thank you. It's important that everyone is able to be included in here. Well, thank you everyone for allowing me to come and present to you today. My name is Samaya Clark, and I currently serve as the Chief Equity Officer for Milwaukee County, as well as the Executive Director of the Office of Equity. And I have a presentation for you today about our Health and Racial Equity Accelerator, which is a tool that allows you to have a good understanding of who your constituents are and what their unique needs are. So I would like to share that with you today. So in terms of the Office of Equity, we engage Milwaukee County residents and build the capacity of Milwaukee County leaders to assess and transform policies, practices, and power structures to make Milwaukee County a region where every resident is welcomed, healthy, and thriving. And so you may wonder, why does equity matter? Well, my grandfathers, both of them were veterans. Are any of us veterans here, or do we have a loved one or a neighbor, maybe even who's a veteran? So several of us. Another thing is, when you think about the state of Wisconsin, we have an aging population. And so there's already a few counties in the state that have more people over the age of 55 than under the age of 18. And within the next 10 years, Milwaukee County will be joining that group of counties. And so it's very important that we understand and identify the unique needs of our veterans, of our older adults, of families who have small children, of people who have disabilities, and then a variety of other dimensions of identity like race, gender, religion, income, and even geography, to make sure that when we're making decisions as leaders, we have a good understanding of who our constituents are and what their needs are. Now, if you think about some of the differences that we have by municipality, so working in the Milwaukee County Administration, I have the honor of being able to work with leaders across all 19 municipalities. And as you know, Shorewood is different than even Whitefish Bay or West Dallas or Cudahy or even Milwaukee. And so we really like to rely on data. We understand the importance of having data, having accurate information so that you can make good decisions, and that you're able to demonstrate accountability to real information. And so when we think about data differences by municipality, we know that sometimes it can be hard to know, like, well, which information is the most up-to-date in that. So Milwaukee County has actually established a host of dashboards to help you find information. So for example, we have a dashboard that is on housing. And I do have a picture of it in a few slides down, where you'll actually be able to see by municipality, by race, by socioeconomic status, and a whole host of other factors, how many people are homeowners? How many people are renters? How many people who are renters have difficulty actually paying their rent on a monthly basis, which we know is starting to grow. That number is growing in terms of the number of residents who are having more and more challenges just buying the loaves of bread, paying rent, and being able to have enough resources to support their families or themselves. So we have a host of dashboards that have been created. We even have things related to like health data, for example, such as cardiac arrests, or people who've been impacted by opiate overdoses. So we have a whole variety of data. And if there's more information that's really important to you, those are the types of things that we would be able to work to be able to provide more information. Some of the other resources that we're able to support you with would be navigating things like the US Census page, or some of our community partners who are experts in data analytics and other information, such as data you can use. So if you see this next picture here, I did mention the fact that Wisconsin has an aging population, and we want to get ahead of that, right? Like, we don't want 10 years now to come and we're like, oh, wow, 40% of the residents who live here have this need now, right? So we want to be able to be proactive in starting to plan for that. So the graph here, I just wanted to pull some examples from different municipalities. So this specific graph is from Brown Deer. And what you can see here is that Brown Deer has about 2,687 people who are aged 18 and under. So again, that population is shrinking as the rest of the population really starts to age. And again, we can see that in different pockets, like South Milwaukee, for example. You're also starting to have a larger population of older adults there as well. This next map here, where it says Milwaukee food environment, is actually from one of our partners' data you can use. How many people either have a constituent or a neighbor or a community member who has experienced food insecurity, essentially meaning that they don't know where their next meal is going to come from? Anybody hear about folks So it's actually a national crisis. Some of that is coming from more grocery closures. And there was a really interesting article that came out in the newspaper recently that talks about how it's not actually theft, which is easy for us to automatically assume, but it's more related to the overall food economy. Can grocers afford to pay family sustaining wages or livable wages to their workers when there is competition? When you think about some other grocery stores, e-commerce is a big thing, and it becomes more and more expensive to have enough volume that a small grocer can purchase to actually make food sales profitable. So what we're seeing is an overall national shrinkage. And so with that in Milwaukee County, you see this map here, and the areas where you see blue are where we have residents who are who have indicated that they're most food insecure. There's some places across the county where more than 40% of the residents don't know where their next meal is going to come from. And that's significant. And these are people, maybe some of them had been okay previously, but with unemployment and other things. And so again, we use these sorts of tools so that we can make good decisions, so that we can understand how to look at budgets and evaluate the competing priorities that so many of us have to navigate on a regular basis. And then the last example that I have is related to home ownership data. And this is actually one of the Milwaukee County dashboards that if you just Google Milwaukee County dashboards, you'll see a host of them. And we do keep them up to date. So this one is actually talking about the number of homeowners that we would need to have across the county in order to have more equity amongst home ownership. And as you can see in this one specifically, across the county, you would need to have over 30,000 more Black or African-American families to be able to purchase a home, to have equity with their counterparts of other races. So there are racial disparities, there are gender disparities that we've seen in different spaces. And then, as I showed you earlier, there are some differences in age. And as educated trustees and decision makers, we want to be able to look at how all of these different factors contribute to the decisions that we're making. Now, the next slide, and I won't go into detail with the rest of them just for the sake of time, but this is just like a snapshot of the Equity Accelerator, so like the goals and how it aligns to the overall Milwaukee County strategic plan. And you can see that part of the I would say magic, not just because my team developed it, but the magic of this tool is that it helps us to break down silos across county government. And we know that now more than ever, we have to get better at partnering. And it's not that we're not good at it already, but now, you know, there's more strain on resources. And so if we can partner better, that's one of the goals that we have to better be able to support the people that we care about in our communities. And we have made the decision to represent. Another thing that it does is it helps us apply a racial equity lens to all decisions. And you may say, well, why would that be important? And so when we think about the importance of having a racial equity lens, what that does is it's not just designed to uplift Black people and not white people or not Hispanic people. What it's looking at is the systems of oppression that have prevented certain people from being able to do well. I was just listening to a speaker the other day, and she was saying that she's a president of a local bank. And she said until 1988, women were not even able to get funding to have their own business. And so if we don't look at gender in terms of economic advancement, then we're going to miss a whole lot. And so that's why we're looking at equity the way we do this work, because we want to see how the policies land on people and the unique needs that they have so that we can be better at understanding those needs and then be responsive to them. And then the last thing that we have here is the importance of investing in equity. So the example that I gave earlier with, the growing number of older adults that we're seeing, So as we know that there's more older adults, we want to look at, well, what is it, for example, what might it look like for people once they have a fixed income, for example, to still be able to have some sort of autonomy and live in their home, right? Maybe that's a specific strategy that you would want to look at. But you only know that if you're approaching the work from an equitable perspective, so that again, you can honor and respond to the unique needs of older adults or people who have other dimensions of identity. So that's why we chose to look at this from an equity perspective, which is different than equality. Equality, everybody gets the same bowl of spaghetti. Equity is we're looking to see what are those unique needs and how do we be responsive to those. So as we go into the Racial Equity Accelerator, we spent a lot of time meeting with different leaders to see, okay, well, if they have projects, they have initiatives that are already in place, what can they do to make sure that the plan that they're coming up with actually meets the needs of their constituents? And so, yes, we can do community engagement. We help you with how to do effective community engagement in this tool. And so how this tool works is actually pretty cool. Is you go to the website and the web address is here under the slide, what it is and how it works. Next slide. No, go back one, sorry. And one more before that. And then one more before that. Yep, right here. So that link right there actually will take you to the webpage. We have PDFs, interactives, tools, and other things like that. So when you think about this slide, the accelerator, how it works is you're able to go in, you can, and then we have something called an impact planner. And with that impact planner, you basically upload your ideas for your project, and then you answer a few questions, and then it'll spit out a couple recommendations that will help you ensure that whatever project you're doing better meets the needs of your constituents. So it's pretty cool. And it's something that then you could take back to your constituents to say, hey, what might this look like? Like if it says, hey, you should have more listening sessions or more community engagement, then you can work with others or even our team to be able to say, well, what does that look like for your specific neighborhood or geographic area that you're working with, so that you're working in, so that you're able to be a lot more, of course, intentional, but have better results. That's what we want at the end of the day, better results in a more efficient way. So now if we can skip ahead to, it looks like this here. Taxes. Okay. So this is just like a snapshot of the website. And I won't go into all of these because I invite you to go in and kind of play around yourself. But what you'll find here is we have 4 big buckets where you can say, okay, if I just want to increase my confidence and kind of build my vocabulary, so when I'm going out and talking with different constituents, I have a better understanding of how to talk about things and what do these words mean and this sort of thing. You can go in and you can get some tools there. Or if you want to be able to plan your work, or if you want to be able to maybe pitch your ideas to a committee, how might you structure that work? Or if you want to be able to say, you know, these are my personal superpowers, like I'm really good at strategy and project management. How can I use my own superpowers to be able to incorporate equity into the work that I do? Then we have tools for you there as well. So you can actually skip forward to so there's a page that looks like this. One more, keep going. There. Thank you. So this is just an example of some of the types of tools that are available to you. We have downloadable PDFs, and toolkits and all kinds of things that are here for you to be able to access. So if you go to the next one. Perfect. So then this is actually, again, it gives you that website. But what I'd like you to also do when you go to that website, there's a link for you to be able to get technical assistance. I do have experts on staff in research, community engagement, language access. We work with disability rights and advocacy. There's all kinds of things that our office is able to do. So if you have questions with specific constituents, I have a team that's able to support you as leaders in coming up with your plan or your strategy. And so with that, if there's any questions, or yield back to you, President.
Right. Thank you so much.
Sure.
That is like record time. You're going to be
Okay.
exhausted after this. So as you all can see, trustees, there are a lot of free tools on this website that we can utilize, staff can utilize when we're prioritizing, when we're thinking about a new initiative. Our committees can think about them in terms of how their priorities interact with different segments of our community, different constituents. So I will open it up to any quick questions, not to discourage, but yes, Trustee Warren.
Well, I just wanted to thank you for the presentation. Really, I really laud your approach here. I really like the fact that it's grounded in data, and you created all these dashboards so you can see the actual opportunity or problem that you're addressing. And then you provide us with this really cool toolbox in order to kind of achieve different results. So thank you so much for sharing this with us. I look forward to exploring it kind of on my own. But thank you for coming here tonight and giving a really concise presentation and hitting really important points, around what is the problem and how are we moving the ball to solve that problem.
I appreciate you, Trustee Warren.
Can I just echo that?
Oh, thank you.
Because I've seen a lot of presentations, but I did not know of some of the resources that you guys have up there right now. So I really appreciate that. And look forward to taking a look.
Oh, awesome.
It really aligns with the
Yep.
strategic vision for
Mhm.
equity and inclusion that we approved several years ago. And it was about, one of the main strategies was to integrate equity thinking into everything that we do. So
Mhm.
it's not something that we do at the end of the year, and I think that this type of tool is exactly what we need. Trustee Warren?
And sorry to immediately raise my hand again, but it can be, President McCaig's point, it can be so daunting when you talk about these big initiatives like integrating equity into everything we do. I love the fact that you've created these tools that make it a little bit less daunting and arm us with something concrete that we can use in order to achieve some of those goals. So thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome. There's just one more tool that you may have interest in. So we actually came up with a budgeting tool that helps you understand the needs and then ask some very targeted questions. So you can look to see, okay, well, how does this improve the overall economic well-being of everybody who lives in our community? Or do we need to be concerned with multilingual access? Because we know that about 22% of people who live in Milwaukee County have limited English proficiency. So, when we're sending out notices and things, like, do we know that our constituents understand what we're trying to convey to them? So there's all of these tools that we've also put in place to be able to support, and we have free technical assistance support for translations and those things as well to go along with this. So I just wanted to share that as an additional resource. That's not a part of this, but it is a part of our technical assistance.
That's great. Any final? All right. Thank you
Thank you.
so much
you so
for
much.
making the trip and extending your day.
Absolutely.
All right,
Thank you.
All right. Fair warning that my battery is very low, but so we'll just run through. That brings us to 4B, consider donation and friends group contribution for the Shorewood Nature Preserve. So this item comes to us from Community and Business Relations, I believe from 2 weeks ago. And speaking of bluff restoration, it helps us move forward on that. So all the materials are in your packet. Is there someone on behalf of the Friends of the Nature Preserve or Mr. Merrick who wants to be on deck for any questions?
Hi, Rebecca. I'm also here. This is Carla. I'm with the Surfrider Foundation. Just wanted to let you know.
Okay. Oh, so so first off, thank you for being here this evening. Thank you for the work that got us here this evening. I would ask, trustee Kudo is not here, but perhaps trustee Ursing, you'd like to report from committee?
Sure. It was just a robust, dynamic conversation about the intentions from this group, and as well as working with Merrick to, accept donations through Surfrider to be able to do more work as, I don't want to say a more legitimate organization, but as they're growing, this would allow them to do more work and to accept funds that can then pass through Surfriders, and then in tune work with Surfriders to do the work that's necessary for this area of Shorewood for the preserve.
And so did it come with a recommendation?
To move forward, yes. So whenever you're ready, I can make a motion, but
I would take a motion.
so I move to approve the donation Friends Group request for purposes of submitting future grant applications. Individually grants projects to be reviewed and approved as funding is secured.
Second.
Motion by trustee Ursing, seconded by trustee Warren. Any discussion? Trustee Stokbrand?
I'm just wondering, is this sort of an in perpetuity thing, or when or how would anything come before us again, in what way, shape, or form?
Great question. One of the things that I really value about the way that both the Friends organization and Surfrider came forward on the donation of time and things under the scope of the grant applications is that they really provided an overall umbrella of the different things that they'd like to accomplish, which is actually drilled down in the preservation plan for the nature preserve and the work that that plan outlines over the next 5 years, 10 years. So their focus is to complete those activities. As they look at those activities, they're going to seek grants, one of which was hyperlinked within this packet to the Bader Foundation, another which you will be provided with in follow-up with me at a future meeting, which is to restoration, help me, the RAY acronym.
Restore America's Estuaries.
Thank you.
It's the Great Lakes program. Yeah.
Correct. So they had been working on that application. The deadline for that was April 17th. I've submitted a letter of support from our municipality for that grant application, and you'll be receiving that, and that'll be located under my report at your next meeting.
So that's in regard to the $700,000.
Correct. As they go and seek additional funding, those grant applications will be submitted to you, and they will run through the same process of going to community and business relations and then the village board, so that those can be reviewed and evaluated against the policy for donations and Friends Group contributions.
There's really no end.
Correct.
I thought maybe it was the 1.5 million and the 5-year, but that's not.
I think that was the estimate of time. That would be wonderful if all the funding was secured and all of the work could take place in 5 years. And that is not to say that I don't support you and believe that you are capable of doing all of that, because you are. But I come from a place where life happens. So every quarter you kind of have to adjust, and sometimes you can get more in 1 year and sometimes you get less. But I think the way that they've set out that long-term expectation is so that both their organizations and the board can have a consistent level of communication, check in on those milestones, but then move forward together to accomplish some of the plan's goals.
So it'll come through manager's report or community and business.
Correct. Typically, if it's going to be a new grant coming in outside of these two, it's going to be going into community and business relations and then to the board. If for some reason, no differently than the other grants that come through the municipality,
Like the police.
if timing is such that we're not going to be able to make that review, I of course will review from the objectives and goals of the board, and we'll bring that forth to you under the scope of my report at one of your board meetings.
I did want to mention, there was some comments in the responses from Mr. Merrick about questions that were presented at the Community and Business Relations. And there was a query about anonymity, and I am the one who submitted those questions. And I was not anonymous because I wanted it to be the staff. Was not. I'm the one who asked. Some questions that I had, a couple of them are, I think they're long-term, but now that I'm not quite sure how long it's going, they were some of the possible projects. One of them was potential boardwalks at the nature preserve. I guess I have some concerns about that going forward. We have them at Atwater. They are protected by the groins there. The groins are one of the reasons we have sand there and we still have a boardwalk there. I mean, your dune grass is a great job too, but I question how long with no groins. I know you also have a potential for possible burying riprap in the sand, and that would be in the lake bed. Is that what you're proposing? I have some concerns about what that would do. You know, up in Mequon, Concordia did some things to their waterfront. It got really nasty, and there were a lot of lawsuits about what happened to the land adjacent. And so I would just be, and I trust the Friends group with this, but I would point out that burying things in the lake bed can affect other properties. And the boardwalks, we do have them at Atwater. I think they took a beating on the Milwaukee River last August when the river was very high. So they're not forever. And I think that's why I was bringing up the question about an endowment.
Mhm.
And I still think there would be some value to that. I think there is a difference between the nature preserve, and I love that it is so different than Atwater. And I hope that it stays that way. The other thing I was a little concerned about was the glyphosate. And I do believe, do you use glyphosate at Atwater on the Bluff? You do? Yeah. Okay, well, you know, on the Bluff at Atwater, people definitely don't go wandering around off the trails. But I think it could be a little bit different situation here with the public having so much access. I think there are people in our community who would be upset to know. I appreciate your transparency. You were right there. You listed what chemicals you're going to use. And I think that's great. I think the only thing you might be able to do then would be the days that you're putting those chemicals in the nature preserve, if you could post it. Because that would be very different. You know, the rest.
I wanted I'm sorry, I can't see who's speaking there. I just wanted to add a couple of comments to your questions around a couple of those things. So as part of this project, we're going to be doing a robust community engagement process. And so that will involve, community meetings, site walks, surveys. And so there'll be plenty of opportunity for the community to provide feedback on some of these ideas. A couple of things that are included in the grants that are in there right now will also be open to feedback as well. So even though it's in the grant already, we included in the grant itself as well that there will be a robust community engagement process, and that we will ensure to incorporate any feedback and any concerns in that to ensure it's like a project that benefits everyone and is something that we all want to see.
Thank you. All right, if there are no further comments, we have a
We have a motion and a
motion.
second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. So thank you for your time and talent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck. That concludes new business, which brings us to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Trustee Warren, seconded by trustee Ursink. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda is to approve the consent agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We will move through to citizens to be heard. This is for items not on the agenda. Is there anyone who would like to be heard on a matter that is not on the agenda this evening? There's no one in person, so I'm looking to the Zoom format. Is there anyone on who would like to be heard? All right, seeing none, we will conclude and move on to new business. 9A, consider ordinance number 3082, amending chapter 220 of the municipal code, brush, grass, and weeds. This comes to us from Public Works Committee with a recommendation to approve. Is there anything that you'd like to add, trustee? Ritchie?
I would just say that members of the Conservation Committee were in attendance, and this seemed, like an appropriate move,
Thank you.
and it was supported.
Great. Would you like to make a motion?
I would love to make a motion. All right, so I move to approve ordinance 3082, amending chapter 220 of the Village Municipal Code for final review at the Village Board.
Second.
Motion by trustee Ursink, seconded by trustee McGovern. Any discussion?
Just wanted to, just on this, I'm generally supportive of this recommendation. I appreciate President McCaig's question about how many complaints we've had over these types of issues in the past. Note that we've had one complaint over the past 5 years, so there hasn't been a lot. That said, I would like to see this. If we start receiving complaints, I'd like to see this come back to the village board so that we make sure we're getting that feedback. I note that even with these changes, all of these kind of it still needs to be to enhance the appearance and value of the property. So even for looking at, making changes to these ordinances, it's still wrapped in that. But again, I think this is worth a check-in in a few months, just because it is a change to how we've traditionally done things. I understand that it hasn't engendered a lot of complaints in the past. But again, if that changes, I'd like to. So I'm supportive of this, but I think it still bears monitoring going into the.
Thank you. Trustee Stokebrand?
Is there a way to do like a 1-year pilot or a 3-year pilot program?
Well, that is not what's being proposed this evening, and so it wouldn't be within the scope of what's before us this
I would
evening.
say, though, if we started getting dozens of complaints, it would probably be something that we would take up in a year or less. I think that's essentially, this is one big pilot program. Let's see how it works. And if the community is really against it, it'll come back before us, and then we can make that decision then.
Yeah, I imagine that we would simply change the ordinance back if it's something that was clear was not working. Which is why I would ask that it come back in a few months, just as a
Thank you. I was just given a note that does not, it's out of scope. So, I recall that there was an ordinance that we passed and the board requested in the motion for a 1-year report.
Well, just recently we came back on electric scooters a year later. We could do the same for this as well.
Was it a no-mo? Was it no-mo May? Did we ask anything about that?
I
We
don't,
did, you had a pilot program specifically for that, not an ordinance.
I think a couple months would be a tough check-in because, but like end of summer maybe would be a better scope of, how everything, or fall would be a better scope of how did the summer go with this, but it's going to, I just don't foresee it, the village being overrun with natural, lawns this first year. I think it's a very specific sort of group. Hopefully everybody does, because I particularly like that, but.
Yeah, and I would just add, we don't normally build in some kind of mandatory check-in or make it a pilot project. It's, we're changing ordinance, and I think anytime we make a change, if it doesn't work, we can always go back and change it later.
That's, perfect.
yeah, I submitted a number of questions in response to email expressing opposition to this amendment, and I am satisfied with the answers that I got from those questions, that the impact would be relatively small to neighbors outside of a philosophical, disagreement, but the physical impact would probably be likely very small. And the overall contribution to the natural habitat would be large and far-reaching to remove this barrier. We're just basically removing a barrier to achieving something that was already allowed. We're just taking away the permit. Mhm.
I think those are all good points, President McCaig, I agree. Still, I would just couch it in. I would just like to hear about this in the fall, how it went, especially if we're getting a lot of feedback. Again, I think that, given your questions and the responses that we got, this has not been something that has caused a lot of issues in the past, so I would not anticipate it. But I would just I'd like to, anytime we make a change, back.
Appreciated. All right, if there are no further discussion, I would close deliberation at this time and ask for a roll call vote.
Trustee Ursink,
Yes.
trustee McGovern,
Aye.
President McKay,
Aye.
trustee Arndorfer,
Aye.
trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Stokbrand.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right, thank you. And thank you for your work on this. 9B, consider ordinance number 3086, amending chapter 229 of the Village Municipal Code, food, lodging, and recreational safety and licensing. This item was presented at our previous meeting, at the last meeting, and now we are being presented with the updated ordinance. So if there's no further, and there is actually no one here to discuss, so I would take a motion to approve. Yes, trustee Stokbrand.
I move to approve ordinance 3086, amending chapter 299, food, lodging, and recreational safety and licensing of the Village of Shorewood Municipal Code to reflect amendments to state statute.
Second.
Motion by trustee Stokbrand, seconded by trustee Arndorfer. Any further discussion? Hearing none, this will be a roll call vote.
Trustee McGovern,
Aye.
President McKay,
Aye.
trustee Arndorfer,
Aye.
trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Ursink,
No.
trustee Stokbrand.
Aye.
Motion carried 5-1.
Thank you. 9C, consider award of contract for 2026 Lake Drive Private Lead Service Line Replacement Program. All the materials in support of this item are contained within your packet. Don't see any outstanding questions that were received today. Hearing none. Oh,
I move approval of award of a line item contract to Alphon. Anybody know? Alphon Excavation LLC in the amount of $345,888.00.
Second.
motion by trustee Ursink, seconded by trustee Warren. Any discussion? Yes.
It was shocking in a wonderful way to see how much lower the bids came in than the engineer's estimate. Is this the beauty of RFPs and open bidding, or what happened? Do we know? I mean, I see Leanne.
Yeah, I can answer that if you'd like.
Yes, please.
I think just generally we're seeing prices coming down because more contractors are gearing up to do this type of work, knowing what's on the horizon.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That concludes new business. And so moving on to reports of village officials, village president, we have the Arbor Day proclamation, and trustee Ursink has, as chair of Public Works, has agreed to issue that proclamation.
Thank you so much, President McKay. Whereas the Village of Shorewood enjoys the reputation of beautiful tree-lined streets and wooded parks, and whereas trees are important to our environment by reducing soil erosion, moderating temperature, cleaning the air, producing oxygen, and providing wildlife habitat, and whereas the residents of Shorewood, the Village of Shorewood, have demonstrated significant interest in the conservation and preservation of rare and historic trees, and whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper and wood for homes, fuel for fire, and countless other wood products, and whereas the Village of Shorewood is celebrating its 30th anniversary of the designation as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation, Now, therefore, I, Ann McCaig, President of the Village of Shorewood, do hereby proclaim Friday, April 24th, 2026 as Arbor Day in Shorewood, dated at Shorewood, Wisconsin, this 20th day of April, 2026.
Wonderful. And
Yeah. Here are the trees. Is
I'll
that the
call your
actual
attention.
sign? Is that the sign right?
Yes,
Yes.
it is. And if you'll notice the 30 years,
yeah,
How
I
many do we
mean-
get? Do we get a lot of, or how many?
that I don't know
just
off the
went.
top of my head, but I would invite you to Arbor Day this Friday. And there will be a bunch of people who would be able to tell you that.
That's great.
It's going to be in River Park at the southeast corner. So that day again is Friday, April 24th at
What's-
10
what-
a.m.
10 a.m.
10 a.m. I'm going to be there.
There's room for everyone.
There is room for everyone.
Fantastic.
All right. The second item is the ICC meeting, link to materials in your packet. I will call your attention to the agenda item regarding possible consolidation of assessor services. Thank you to Manager Ewald for attending in my stead. I believe it was a historic conversation. And
Was
there
that
was-
in the packet?
The agenda was yes. And then previously in a Friday update, I had provided all of you with the report that the policy forum had issued. I can recirculate that again.
That would be
But
great.
they did in this week, but they had completed a review of assessment services for all municipalities in Milwaukee County with the hope that there would have been a feasible way for us to proceed without having to take on significant costs. So that report did a really good job in kind of detailing some of the fiscal limitations for municipalities like ours who who has our own individual contract versus working with some of our larger municipal assessment teams, just the city of Milwaukee, city of West Dallas, city of Wauwatosa, who have people on staff. So it really took a look at what type of staff would be required in order to complete that analysis. And now I want to stop because I'm off scope, but I would be happy to share.
Let's recirculate.
Yeah, I'd be happy to recirculate that.
I basically
report.
just wanted to call your,
The progress made at ICC was that there might be an option for us to not just.
They received the report, the policy forum provided a presentation on the report. And at the conclusion, the cliff note would be that it was not financially prudent for all 19 municipalities to join into a countywide assessment system. Correct. But I will recirculate. Thank you. My apologies.
all right. That concludes my report. Village trustees.
I would just say that I attended last week's bid board meeting and just a very robust conversation about sort of what's happening in the community, that there has been at least out of the 100 and some odd businesses that are affected by construction, there has been at least 50 grant applications. The bid has a grant program that they are currently working through to try to figure out the logistics of that program, how much money they're going to give to businesses, but businesses can apply for hardship, basically a hardship grant for funds. And right now the bid is going through sort of what they have available to give and how they're going to give that to local businesses. They're going to do multiple phases of this throughout the construction process. There's also conversation about, the events that are happening, how we can still support businesses during construction. Is the feast going to continue? What's going to happen with the World Cup? So many of these events that happened on Oakland, the parade, what's going to happen with those? How they're going to affect how is that going to affect business? And then, obviously the parking lot discussion has also come up, and the need for a survey, which we're putting out, which is fantastic. So I think there are businesses that are very concerned. And there's businesses that know that they're just going to have to, bear down and get through this time, but they know that this is an absolute necessity. And then, as always, just trying to educate as much as we can, as much as the bid can, about what we're doing and why we're doing it and how this is going to benefit the community as a whole when it's all finished.
Thank you. Any other reports? Trustee McGovern.
Yeah, last week on Thursday, along with Supervisor Ann O'Connor, I co-hosted a discussion on immigration in Milwaukee. Supervisor O'Connor was the one that really pulled it all together. We had panelists from the Milwaukee Police Department, the Turners, Ford Latino, and Voces de la Frontera, and it was kind of focused on, for people who are concerned about ICE and wanting to make some changes, panels on how to get involved and also how to protect your rights, your own rights when you're at a protest or things like that. So there's a United Methodist Church in Whitefish Bay, which is nice homecoming for me because that's where I used to go when I was a kid. So really good event, probably like 90 or 100 people, a lot of people from Shorewood. And then actually earlier that day, along with Trustee Stokebrand and Village Manager Ewald, a bunch of others, I'll maybe let her give more of the update, but there was the 90th anniversary of the Shorewood Women's Club luncheon, and a really great event, presentations on some of the founding women and leaders of Shorewood throughout our history, including some of our former teachers at Shorewood High School. That was pretty cool.
That's great. Do you want to add anything, Trustee Stokebrand?
No, it was, Karen de Hartog did a wonderful job, very complete, very thorough, on famous women in Shorewood. And I just wanted to mention something that I think the Parks and Public Spaces Committee is eager to see what comes through the process for their 2027 initiative. So they're waiting for working on the 2026 ones and looking forward to the 2027 list.
Great. I just realized why Clerk Harrell gave me this note. I'm a little slow. Deputy Clerk Mai Chang received her certification from the IIMC for clerk. So congratulations. Thank you. It took me a little while. She was giving it to me to include in my report, but
I was wondering this whole time what the note said, so
Yeah.
I'm glad I
Okay.
finally, there's conclusion to that.
yeah, exactly. Thank you for reporting that. Is there anything else you'd like to report? Okay. Manager Ewald?
Just included in your packet are two grants that were submitted, innovation grants. This is the first round of submission for innovation grants for implementing contracted services. Our finance team submitted two, one for Lauterbach and Eamon and the other for Arcadis. And for those of you who can't recall, they are the people who are working on our lead service line implementation and finance plan. So we look forward to seeing what the Department of Administration's review of those grants produce.
Thank you.
So are they retroactive then? So 'cause I noticed that the LNA one said something about being our contractor through 2028 or something. And I think the contract ends in 27.
Correct. They were working off of the contract that we have with them right now and submitted that contract on their behalf. Of course, if we were not working with Lauterbach and Eamon, we would not be eligible to receive the grant.
So it assumes that we're renewing the contract?
They provided our existing contract under the premise that we would go through a renewal cycle with them. Of course, if the board chooses not to participate or select them for services, you would not pursue or receive the funding.
All right, thank you. I would say any further discussion should be directed via email and provided it in the Friday update.
Mhm.
All right, we have no future items of consideration to consider, so a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Trustee McGovern, seconded by Trustee Ursink. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned at 8:27 PM. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.